and welcome back to another video. This is going to be another Casey sits and talks to you sort of video, but I felt like it was important to give a little bit more information about my process. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't, I don't know. Because I haven't done a video like this for a while as far as like my actual process to starting and planning out my garden. And I thought it was probably time, because this is probably my 5th year of like really avidly gardening. I've always gardened ever since I was like an adult and had my own house and garden. Not when I lived with my parents, didn't like gardening then. But I've always kind of gardened, but I definitely started in the not knowing or understanding anything bandwagon. No cat. She keeps trying to get in the video. I think she's cute, but she blocks the camera. So when I first started gardening, you would just go to the store, you'd buy your starts. Didn't really know anything about seasons of when you should grow stuff. Didn't know what should and shouldn't grow together. Didn't know spacing. And quite frankly, I didn't even really eat vegetables. It's just the concept of like growing my own stuff was just really neat to me at the time. And I didn't really eat vegetables because when I was like 15, I got diagnosed with like severe IBD, basically like Crohn's colitis sort of thing. And at that time I was so sick, like I wasn't allowed to eat fruits or vegetables, like too much fiber, the seeds and the fruit, all of that would really mess with my illness. And I think this February will be like 9 years since I had the J-pouch operation. I tried every medicine, every avenue I could until it just got to the point that my colon was so scarred there was nothing else I could do except for remove it. So having the J-pouch done, 9 years, regained so much of my life that I didn't even realize I wasn't living. And it's been really great, and I can eat whatever I want now. Very minor exceptions, but for the most part I can do whatever I want. So since I could finally experiment and try more of those sort of things, I started learning more about fruits and vegetables and things, and trying more things. Like when I first started gardening, I would grow peppers just because I could, but I hated peppers. I did not like them. I kept trying them and I'm like, ugh, how do people eat these? I've since then become obsessed with peppers, and I eat peppers several times a week probably at this point. I always sort of liked the cold crops like broccoli, but like when I was younger, asparagus came in a can. Definitely do not like that anymore. I only eat fresh asparagus, that sort of stuff. Also don't grow it. That is a goal of mine some year, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, so I'm kind of on my 5th year of like really avidly going at it and gardening and having a vegetable garden in which I'm growing the things that we will then eat or preserve, blah, blah, blah. So I was trying to find where I started with garden planning, and I could not find my folder, and I don't know what I did with it, which upsets me. But my mom got me this really cool thing this Christmas from Tractor Supply, she said. My cat's eating one of the plants now because I won't pay attention to her. And it's basically a garden planner where you can like type, here's what I grew, here's the variety, here's how it did. These sort of things are really nice to take notes from year to year on the things that you grew and like what worked and what didn't. I tend to have a really good memory, so I don't generally use these sort of things when I'm gardening. Like to me, it's not necessary. Plus I do the videos, which kind of helps. I end up watching those in the winter time, like getting excited about growing my own garden again. But the really cool thing that this one included that another one I tried did not, where did I see that I really liked? Well, first of all, it's got like, here's where I type in my zones and my first and last frost date, because you use those dates to help you know when you should start what, so on and so forth. So like for my area, I am zone 7A, and my final spring frost is April 15, last frost date, and my first frost date is October 27th. Now, from living here in years past, I also know that if I were to take the April 15th date and use that as a starting date to do all of my summer crops, they're not going to be happy. The general rule of thumb for my area is things like, especially peppers, Mother's Day weekend. If I wait till Mother's Day weekend to plant out my peppers, the soil should be a warm enough temperature that they won't end up having any kind of weird cold snaps or the soil's too cold, blah, blah, blah. So like these are just like estimations. It's not a promise. It's not a guarantee. That does not guarantee you that you won't have like a frost come at the end of April that will knock out the plants that you thought weren't gonna be affected. And then also that October 27th date, I think my crops, I didn't take them out till close to Thanksgiving this year. There are some things that I have to relearn as well because of the USDA zone changes last year. I went up a degree. I was 7B, now I'm 7A. And I can actually do things like dahlias sooner than I used to, and I haven't gotten those rhythms down yet. Though having said that, we're having like the coldest winter we've had in a while, so maybe I can't do anything early this year, unsure. They have this cool little like schedule that you could use if you're doing a basic home garden. I've got way too much else going on to use that, so I'm going to try something different this year. It even has like a template for when you're doing fall gardening, because you can garden, you know, full-fledged again for the fall using the cold crops and such. But one of the things I really liked is it came with this grid paper where I could draw out my garden layout and start trying to like grid out where I want things to go. I don't know how well that translates, but the only area I couldn't capture on this is like the thing around my greenhouse, so I plan on drawing that out on a different page. But I thought that was really neat that I could draw this out as much as possible and start like writing in where I want to plant things and seeing what can and can't work. So yeah, I just thought I'd show that. That's pretty cool. So the first step to me in order to plant a garden is to make plans like that. Where are you planting as much as you can? And what type of things do you want to grow? For me, being obsessed with peppers, I like to leave a lot of room for peppers. I do about 6 bell pepper plants and probably 4 to 6 jalapeno plants, depending on what else I want to grow. I do some Fresnos because they're like a smokier jalapeno, really good in chili. I do Serranos because they're kind of like a spicier, smaller jalapeno in my opinion. Like I'm not going to make poppers out of them, but I use them to like heat up meat and stuff like that. Spice up meat, not heat it up. And then last year I didn't grow the shishito peppers. I did the sugar rush peach instead. And I wasn't a huge fan. Like they were kind of fun. And if I was like a really big salsa girl, maybe that would make sense. But I'm not. I did use it in some of my spaghetti sauces and they weren't my favorite. And I kind of actually missed the shishito peppers. I thought for sure I wouldn't because I didn't love them. But I did really love just like picking a bunch, blistering them, and having like a healthy-ish snack that I didn't really get out of my peppers this year. So I'm not gonna grow the sugar rush peach. I'm gonna go back to the shishitos and do like 2 plants of that. And then I always grow my Chinese 5 pepper and the Thai chili because like I said in my other video, I dry those out and make my own Thai chili sauce. So I leave a lot of room for peppers. Another thing I experienced this year was I had an abundance of cherry tomatoes. I wouldn't say like too much, but I would say that that is one of my largest tomato crops because my slicer tomatoes really suffered this year. I had issues with pests and I had issues with letting things go wild this year, hindering my crop production. So I was thinking about trying to grow some slicer tomatoes in the same way I grow my cherry tomatoes, just to see, I don't know, how does that work? That does mean I'm taking up more of my vertical space for things such as tomatoes, but I'm gonna cut back on cherry tomatoes, I think only by 1 plant. So I think I'm only doing 5 instead of 6, so it's not that big of a deal. And then I'm gonna try 2 slicers on it and just see how they grow on the trellis as well. So that was another plan that I had. I'm getting really into flowers. So I always leave one bed open for dahlias, and I have that bed planned out. And another thing I'm doing different this year is I took one of my beds, the one I did the cold crops in last year, and I put a bunch of bulbs in like I did last year for fall or for spring flowers, tulips and narcissus, that kind of stuff. And I'm gonna pre-sprout my ranunculus, and hopefully the anemones I ordered come in, and I'm gonna fill the rest of that bed with those. One thing I did wrong last year is, again, not really understanding the zone stuff that well. I ended up planting my ranunculus too late, and then I only got a few blooms till it got too hot. So this year I'm gonna like sprout them early and get them out there. And I'm gonna put frost blanket over them and see if that makes it any different. And the anemones are new for me. I've never done those before, but they should be very similar to the ranunculus, just different type of corn. So I have a bed for that, and then I'll have a bed for my cold crops. And then I think I'm also gonna randomly, last year I randomly planted some cold crops in different areas just because I was making new garden beds and had the space. And those ended up being some of the best cold crops that I grew the entire year. So I might do that again to see if, I don't know, diversifying where I plant them helps. Because it's really nice when you can get your own broccoli and cauliflower. Even though the thing that bothers me is it's like very fleeting. You grow this whole broccoli plant for 1 head of broccoli. I mean, sure, you get sprouting broccoli off of it too on the side shoots, but generally you took up all that space to make like 1 meal, and I don't have space to grow like, you know, a month's worth of broccoli. So maybe one day, that's my dream. So after you get your space planned out, the next thing you need to do is figure out when you're supposed to plant your seeds. So I'm going to take this little bucket right here. This is my little bucket of seeds that I would like to winter sow. So I was thinking about doing a little short video on winter sowing since I've done it before. But I separated these out as like, hey, here's the things I have planned to winter sow. I also have this baggie of stuff because these are perennial plants and they need to go through a cold stratification period, which would be what winter sowing would do. But I was supposed to start these in the fall for my mom, and I didn't. So I took them out of the fridge, and I think I might just put these in an AeroGarden seed starting thing and try and grow out a bunch of perennials because she wanted like hollyhocks and larkspur and stuff like that. So I have those as well. But anyway, what you'll do is you'll take the packet, and on the back it should say when to sow outside. So this seed, this is Verbascum mullein. This says it's recommended 2 to 4 weeks before your last frost date. So if my last frost date is April 15th, this says up to 4 weeks before April 15th, you want to sow it outside. That means it's going through a cold stratification period to like take on, and then it'll be able to germinate. It looks like ideal soil temperature for germination is 60 to 70. If sown as early as January in mild climates, plants might bloom the first year. So that's the other thing about things like perennials. Generally, you won't get blooms the first year because the plant's getting established before it throws up its blooms. If you trick it and like grow these in the summer and plant them out in the fall so they go through their cold period, that'll be like a year to them, and then you'll get blooms the next year. But so I want to do some Verbascum. I've got some columbine in here, some poppies, of course. some kale, some cabbage, Brussels sprouts. I think those are the things that oh, and broccoli I have here too. So that means I have cauliflower too. So those are the things I'm planning on doing winter sowing with, along with these, which, like I said, these are like, I have this flax lineum thing. I've never gotten this to grow, so we'll see. Hollyhocks I've got in here. A different type of hollyhock that my mom bought from Amazon, which scares me, but I guess I'm going to try that. Larkspur and delphinium. So those are the things I'm planning on winter sowing. Some of those, like the broccoli and cauliflower, I will also start in a traditional seed starting manner, just because I like to try it multiple ways to have success. Last year I did some in the greenhouse, some in winter sowing, and some in the house. And the greenhouse starts were stronger. The ones that were winter sown were really good plants. And the ones I did inside were fine, but with my greenhouse and inside, the other issue I had is I bought like Miracle-Gro moisture control potting soil, and I used that instead of seed starting mix. And it was just too salty, too hot, whatever. It stunted the plants and kind of made them not good. I had to go find other soil somewhere. And that's one of the issues I have in my area. If I don't like order it from Amazon, it's really difficult to find potting soil that's good enough for plants, because like Miracle-Gro does not cut it, at least in my experience. So instead I bought a decent seed starting mix, and I'm at least gonna start there for most of it. And then I have my whole little basket here of, these are the things I want to grow. That does not include all the seeds we went over in my last video that I ordered, but they'll be mixed into here at some point. And what I like to do is I kind of put, okay, what am I starting first? And then I separate flowers from vegetables. So up here is like, I start with things like spinach and lettuce and all of that, and then it transitions to tomatoes and peppers. I have a little pocket of herbs I want to try in this area, and then these are the flowers I want to do, which I also separate by, let's start with like the pansies, the alyssum, and the forget-me-nots, and move on to the zinnias and nasturtiums and so on and so forth. What I think I'm going to try, and I haven't figured it out yet, is I got another one of these. If you have not seen these are basically photo storage containers from Michaels, or I think Joann has them too, probably some other craft stores, I don't know. But they came out with a pretty ombre color this year. Do not buy these outside of the winter time, because traditionally they're $40. And if you wait to get it till around Christmas, well, I think it's right after Christmas, because that's when Organization goes on sale, but they're down to like $13, $14. And so I only buy them at that time of year. But I saw somebody take one of these and basically label each container with like 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost, and 4 to 6, so on and so forth. So I was gonna try that as far as separating out when I'm going to plant things. Of course, that requires me to kind of go back to the drawing board and spend a lot of time reading seed packets, but I'm thinking I want to try that. The other suggestion somebody had was to like take a calendar. Doesn't really matter the year, because it, you know, sure, the 19th of September is different from year to year, but if you take note that on this date is when I started my spinach seeds, then when it comes to the next year, you can look, okay, this is about when I started my spinach seeds, so that's when I should do it again, sort of thing. It's kind of like a tracking mechanism for you year to year. So I thought I'd give that a try too, but I haven't picked up a calendar yet. That might be on my agenda today. Yes. That was Abby, sorry. So yeah, I think that's my next steps, is I kind of planned out my garden. I planned out what things I'd like to grow this year. And the next thing I need to do is figure out when I'm starting what. The very first thing that I believe I'm gonna actually start today is my onion seeds. So I'm gonna take these and I'm gonna get those started, get them on a heat mat downstairs in the seed starting area. And I'm probably also gonna start prepping my winter sowing containers so that I can get some of that done. I might not though, because the forecast for this week is gonna be extremely bitterly cold. I think Caleb said like Tuesday the high is like 12 degrees or something. So I may wait, because they should be fine since that's the way they function, but I might as well give them the best chance that I can and not waste my seeds. So I might not do them this weekend. I might do them next weekend and just do the onions and some stuff like that this weekend. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to go over. I thought I would just share some of this with you, and I'm planning on doing a video of my seed starting station, show you that and the things that I use there. And I'll also, when I do the winter sowing, I'll take a short video of that just to show again how I do it. Maybe that will inspire one of you, but anyway, thanks for watching.